Hello everybody, this is Plant Man Noah. This is one of my first videos I'm making, and I'm going to show you guys how I seed and transplant plants. Today I'm going to be seeding sweet bananas, and I'm going to be transplanting a few more cabbages. And I'm going to show you guys how I utilize that in my garden and in my aquaponics system, but my focus is going to be seeding and transplanting today. So I apologize for the noise. I have pumps running, and you guys are going to see a lot of the top of my head, but hopefully I get good coverage of what I'm doing. So first I get a nice even tray of soil. I use regular BM1 potting mix, but you can also use seed starting mix to do this. So for my bigger seeds like sweet bananas, I'll just scatter them even throughout here, and this will get me hundreds of plants. I've already done this multiple times in my garden. So I've got my thing seeded. Super easy, super quick. It's a lot faster than just pitting one in each hole or two in each hole and then thinning later. And then I put a thin layer of soil over top. It really only needs to be like 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch. You really just want to cover the tops of the soil, or the tops of the seeds with soil. If you have a few seeds that are showing, it's not a big deal. They'll either germinate or they won't. Doing this, I really don't care too much about germination of each seed because I'm never going to count it. So now that I've got that planted, I have it nice moist soil. Pat it down a little bit, and that's done. That's all I do to seed my plants. I put a label on it and the date, that way I know if the seeds are bad when they germinated, or if they don't germinate, I have a time frame on how long that should take. So I wait a couple weeks, and then boom, this is how they go. This is cabbage seeds. They're a little overgrown. You really should transplant them a lot sooner than this, because their root systems are a little more developed than I would like them to be, but that's okay, they'll still do just fine. So I'll break off clumps at a time, and I'll slowly thin them out. You got to be careful because small plants like this are really fragile on the stems, but as long as you get some roots with it, you're okay. If you snap one, or you think you ripped off too much roots off of one, just throw it aside, like this one here. That's snapped. It may go, but I'm not going to fool with it because I want a good success rate with my transplanting. So I'm just going to crush it and throw it to the side. So next what I do is I have the tray, and I've already got this one over half transplanted. That way you guys don't have to watch me transplant the whole tray. But I've got this pen, my Sharpie. It's probably my most used tool in the greenhouse. And what I'll do is I'll just make holes inside of this. And a lot of people make these holes like this and actually put their seeds in each one, and they'll either put 2 seeds in each one and thin out later, or they'll put 1 seed in each one and just have empty spots in their trays. Well, I don't like to have empty spots in my trays. I like to have nice full trays because I'm doing a lot of reselling as well. So I'll get my plant, and you see this one doesn't have much root, but my soil is very moist, so even if it's got some root, it'll be okay. You really want to try and get them deeper than that one is. Depending on the plants, tomatoes really like to be really deep. So some of them, like long spindly ones, sometimes I'll kind of gently fold them in half like that and get them deeper like that. And really, this goes fairly fast. It probably goes just as fast as seeding the seeds one by one, but I don't have holes in my trays, which I really enjoy not having holes in my trays. Like I said, don't worry if you break a couple of them, like this one's busted, no roots. If you don't have it all dirty, you can just eat it. But this variety of cabbage is Early Jersey Wakefield. I have not grown this variety before, so I'm fairly new to gardening still. I've done a lot of greenhouse work, doing stuff like this. I actually learned how to do this at college. I went to college. I did not finish, but I completed 2 years earning my horticulture degree before I got married and moved back home to follow my passion. As you see, this really doesn't take too long. You just want to make sure you get the roots in the hole, obviously, and you get them completely covered with soil. A lot of people think you got to be super gentle with little plants like this, and you do need to be gentle. But plants want to survive, you know, so as long as you get them in the soil and you don't snap them, you're probably okay. It's best to handle them by the leaves, because if you bust a leaf, no big deal, but if you bust the stem, you have a dead plant. So I'll either transplant them into pots like this. This is 1204s. I've got some 804s I can transplant into, or I also do like a 3.5 inch, 4 inch pot for bigger plants or plants that I want to sell at a higher cost. I also occasionally transplant into my aquaponics system here, which I'll show you a little bit about that in just a second. This is my lettuce. As you can see, I transplant plants into, I've got lava rock, and on the other end of this is goldfish. But my lettuce is growing big, beautiful. Days when it's not sunny, or days when it's extra cold out, or I'm not getting much sunlight, or it's nighttime, I have this grow light. It works really well. And my lettuce, since it warmed up here in mid-Missouri, it's actually bloomed and grown. And this is butter crunch lettuce. It's one of my favorite varieties of lettuce. It's just got a nice texture. Very beautiful plant. But I've got garlic, lavender, stuff in here too. But you can also start your seeds like that and transplant into grow beds or garden beds like this. And you can see I do this with lots of different plants. That's echinacea, Italian sweet basil, celosia, dusty miller. Things with bigger seeds like zucchini, I'll seed those directly in this, because these plants are a little bit more fragile in my opinion to try and transplant. So I go ahead and seed those one at a time in bigger packs like this. But you can see I've got some that just didn't come up, so I probably ought to start 2 or seeds in each packet and just thin out later. I also, for smaller quantities of seeds, you can do smaller trays like this. These are serrano chilies, orange bell peppers. Those are orange bell peppers as well. This is cleomes. And I've got some Carolina Reapers and chocolate ghost peppers. They haven't germinated yet. My regular ghost peppers have germinated. Not a very good rate on those. I think I need a heat pad, but we'll see. And then I got a chicken in my greenhouse. Oh, come on. Things with bigger seeds, I transplant into individual seeds like that. That's come on. I got my funny little chickens. They like my greenhouse. So from here, I'll move my newly transplanted plants into my other greenhouse. I have 2 greenhouses. This is my seeding and transplanting greenhouse, and I also have some succulents in here as well. I'll show you guys the succulent collection really quick. I've got some agave, topsy-turvy, pregnant onion, some pineapple plants, bromeliads. I should have a video on how to start pineapple plants from pineapple tops. Crown of thorns, different varieties of aloes. So just a nice little succulent collection. I've got more succulents in my other greenhouse as well. So you guys saw half of my aquaponics system. This is my other half. This one is the one in the blue tub, which has perch in it. And they're doing great. They're growing nice. I feed them mealworms and other insects that I catch. And they love it. And then this is the one with the goldfish. So the water's a little gross, but I think that's my fish are doing just fine and my plants are growing great. So, and I use this water to water my plants with, because even all my trays and stuff, because it's high in nitrogen, It's got a lot of nitrates in it, which is great for my plants. So, and it also allows me to exchange some of the water out. So I take water out of there to water my plants, and when I get low, I just refill it with fresh water. So I do water changes just like that. So now that I've got these guys transplanted, I move them over to here, and I've got these solid bottom trays that hold water, and I stick them in there, and that bottom waters my plants, which makes it nice and evenly soaked throughout the pot. So you get a pretty high rate, success rate transplanting like this, as long as you're careful. So you can see I've done this a lot. Those are some I've transplanted into bigger pots. Those are my habaneros there. They're still pretty small. But I've transplanted all these like that. And occasionally one or two will die if I let it dry out too much. But it's a pretty high rate. It's a lot better than seeding one by one in each one of these, in my opinion. So I'll give you guys a quick overview of my greenhouse. I got a tulip there. It's getting ready to bloom. So chamomile, I transplanted chamomile like this. Chamomile is a little bit harder to do. I do okra like that. Lots of tomatoes like that. My tomatoes are doing great. Like I said, when you plant the tomatoes, you don't really need to leave any of the stem above the ground. Maybe just a little bit, because they really like to be deep. They'll grow a new stem, just like these did. I planted these super deep, and you can see they're growing really nicely. So it's nice and hot. So I've done hundreds of trays like this. So there's not hundreds in this greenhouse, but I've done hundreds, if not thousands, of trays like this in the past, and it works great. If you guys have any questions, just leave your questions in the comments, and I'll try and give you an answer as fast as I can. I also have a YouTube channel. I will leave that in the comments. Just give my page a like. Noah's Nursery and Greenhouse on Facebook. And you guys have a blessed year.